And now it is my great pleasure to welcome the three poets. You know, I was asking Sybil, I said, gee, I don't really know your name. And she said, well, we're the three poets. And so you are. But I'm delighted you're here. I really love what you do. And I think you've done a great service to poetry. You know, I've said this before on the program. Poetry is the best. We all know that. So it's, you know, this is like an abundance of riches having you here. But let me introduce you. To my far right is Sybil Bank. And next is Sasha Ettinger. And closest to me is Evelyn Candell.
Hi.
And so I'm delighted to have you here. Let me just tell you a little bit about each of you. I think I'm going to take up all the time if I tell everything about you, so I can't do that. But Sybil is a poetry and prose writer, previously an early childhood director, and she's an award-winning poet published widely in journals and anthologies. And I happen to be crazy about you. We're really very good friends.
You like her best.
And Sasha, no, not best. Just I happen to know her best. And Sasha, a retired special education teacher, past vice president of the Coalition Against Child Abuse and Neglect, and you are on the advisory board and a member of the Nassau County Poet Laureate Society, and part of the three poets. And you are part of the workshops and what you do. And Evelyn, I know that you are
published,
yes, widely published. Yes. They all are, so that you know, we're really talking to you know, to really very good poets. And Evelyn, you retired from the Portledge School as chair of our art department, and you're the author of 4 books of poetry, winning top awards in 2 of them. And your poems are included in many anthologies, and you are a very popular teacher of poetry in our Great Neck Adult program.
Yes, yes.
I hear nothing but praise about you. So listen, let me just start by asking you, how did the three poets get started, and what was your objective? You know, tell us your, you know, what your what your purpose is.
It goes back 7 years. The three of us were in a writing group, Taproot, in Port Washington. And we were talking about our own poetry, and saying it was such a shame that so many people were indifferent to poetry. Oh, it's too hard. I don't understand.
Well, you know, that's somehow out there, and we have to break it down.
Exactly.
So go ahead.
Well, we said, could we do something? Could we do a program? And what would it be about? Well, the first thing was the title, Plain Talk About Poetry. Plain talk.
Say.
Exactly. And our aim, our mission, was to demystify poetry, to present it in a relaxed way, with an intimate group, in a circle, not a lecture, an interactive idea in which we would present, and Sasha will tell you more about how exactly what we did. But we brainstormed, we just came up with some ideas of what would work, what would not work, what is it that puts people off. So the first thing we decided is all the poems that we would bring to it and present to it would be accessible. Yeah. Billy Collins, not E.E. Cummings, you know, or John Ashbery, that nobody would know what they were talking about. And then we just got busy. We sent out flyers. We called everybody we knew. We contacted libraries. We called program people. And we just worked our little butts off until we got the word out there. Yeah. And in October 2009, we had our first Plain Talk at the Glen Cove Library. And that was us started.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sasha.
Yes. So since we all love poetry, Ev, Sib, and myself, and we like research as well, we decided that we would really go at this full. And so we did a lot of research, and certainly we researched past poets like William Carlos Williams and Walt Whitman, of course, and Emily Dickinson, and then contemporary poets. So there are so many marvelous contemporary poets. So Kamiko Hahn and Alicia Oestreicher and Liesel Muller, and I could go on, Sharon Olds. And we did a lot of research, and we put together this really marvelous, intimate, and totally inclusive poetry workshop. So the process is very simple. We sit in a round table setting, and the participants each are given packets of poems that we're going to workshop that afternoon. And then, of course, at the end of the workshop, they get to take those packets of poems home for their own reading pleasure.
Well, that comes as a surprise. And you sort of feel in the beginning that, oh God, how am I ever going to do this? But you do.
Yes. Absolutely.
I'll say something about that after my personal response. But Sybil, you tell me now more.
Well, actually, we started to love doing it, and people loved coming. So at this point, we've done 11 different programs. We've done cool poems for the hot summer, warm poems for the cold winter, love poems, poems about the holidays, poems about the isms, surrealism, cubism, Dada, and those have been actually accompanied by slides and on PowerPoint. We've also done ekphrastic poetry, which is, of course, poetry about looking at a painting or listening to a beautiful piece of music. And on and on. We have so many topics, and then once we're on topic, we float along and find the poems that will fit into that category, and also read some of our own poems, as well as the poems of very famous people. Well, what I do remember, actually, very, very succinctly, it was a cold winter day, and we were in the Glen Cove Library. And the snow was actually blistering the windows, and there we were, this wonderful sort of intimate group. And we started talking about love poems. We had a lot of poems to offer, all the way down from Robert Browning, from Christina Rossetti. We had contemporary poets of various kinds, and Amakobo, we had Yevgeny. We had so many poets to present. We sorted those out. We had some from Jim Fenton, we had some from Sharon Olds, a wide variety of poets. And then we handed out the prompts after the people who were there had read various poems aloud.
Yeah, that's a point, that we have the audience read the poems.
They read the poems.
Yes, I'd like to just interject a thought here. The audience, the participants, read the poems aloud. The thing that's wonderful about that is that sometimes, and very often before they even understand the meaning of the poem, they're moved and touched by the feelings they get from reading the poem. And basic things that we do in the Plain Talk Basic Workshop is discuss what does a poet need to do? A poet needs to concentrate. A poet needs to compress his words for maximum power. A poet needs to use alliteration and metaphor and imagery, all these marvelous tools to create his or her own voice. And when we read the poems aloud, we look for the alliteration, we look for the metaphor, we look for the form, perhaps, the line length, and so forth. We go through so many wonderful aspects of what a poem is actually about, and it's a terrific experience for everybody.
It is.
It's wonderful.
I think for you, and I know for the audience, because, I've been there.
Yes, you've
But
been
I
there.
do want to hear each of you read. Now,
Sure.
If you want to do original poems or whatever your choice is. But I just do want to say that it's interesting that you make the presentation. I think your selection is great. I guess you could do love poems from now till Christmas.
Yes,
That's
yes.
such a juicy subject.
Yes, definitely.
But then at the end, when you ask your audience to write poems, and at first everybody's kind of in shock. Oh my God, how am I ever going to do this? But you do.
Yes.
My experience was that it just came. I don't consider myself a poet. I think in my programs I've only written maybe 2. Because sometimes it's part of it's in reaction to a painting.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm prompted to do it. If I do use the
Yeah.
painting, I've got to have a poem,
Yeah.
and I do it. But my experience with you was that it just came easily.
Well, I'll interject a thought there, if I might. At that time, when the participants read their poems aloud, it's not only inspiring for them and for us, but it's very revealing as
Yeah.
well. And very often people who have never read a poem before, participants who don't know very much
Yeah.
about poetry, find themselves through the short prompts
Yeah.
that we offer them, suddenly writing several lines, and they love it. And they're not afraid to stand up and read
Yeah.
aloud the poems that they do.
Well, I think it's a tribute to you. I think you create an atmosphere in which you feel empowered, or, you know, I just thought, yeah.
You
And
know,
I thought,
Shirley, we offer prompts,
yeah.
and the prompt is sort of a magic.
yeah,
Now, in that afternoon when we were doing the love poems, we sort of gave them suggestions like, someone walked by and gave a sigh. Wild nights. In Paris with you. Love I never dreamed would be mine. And as we move these prompts along, it sort of touches people in a very special, intimate place.
Yeah.
And we were amazed at the sort of poetry that we received after those prompts. People literally poured their hearts out. They were so emotional.
Yeah.
And they were so free and trusting in this atmosphere to read those poems. And we had a beautiful comment, which I'll never forget. Somebody said, you know, it's raining outside. The world is full of war, it's full of hatred, it's full of division. And here we are. It's an oasis of peace. Thank you. Give us lots more.
Yes. Yes, you know, and happily, many of the attendees follow us from workshop to workshop. And to bring closure to the workshops, they fill out evaluation sheets telling us about ourselves.
We really have to, we're running out
Sure,
of time a little bit, but
absolutely.
I'd love to hear each of you read
Sure.
if you have something that you
Sure.
can do. How, should we start with you?
Sure,
All right.
Evelyn?
Yes, I just have all kinds of things stuck in here. Sorry. Beginnings. I'm about beginnings, something new always on the front burner, ready to start stewing an untried dish, ignite the fading flame of interest in cooking the tried and true, new shoes to take me into and out again. I'm about cleaning up, clearing out, jettisoning old, worn, tiresome. Liking the empty shelves, nothing on countertops, refrigerator devoid of half-empty bottles, jars of stale tomato sauce, 2 olives in a slightly off olive oil. I'm about leaving for someplace new, always packing a bag with comfort things, a blanket with a blue satin binding, small boxes with small treasures inside, a supply of secret silences, learning to make friends in a new place, yet knowing I'll see you means never. I'm about beginnings even when implausible. The energy needed for the start over, not as readily available, yet carrying on, getting up and getting going, being busy, polishing the skill of always smiling, giving laughter as presents. I'm definitely about beginnings in the end.
That's wonderful.
Very nice.
That's great.
Okay, so-
Well, yes, so there's a quote that I just love. A poem is the natural prayer of the human soul.
Okay.
And I think as poets we're always searching for their soul, the soul of
hear
the
it.
poem and the soul of ourselves. This is called When the Duende Comes, and the duende is the Spanish word for soul. I sit beneath the mountains surrounding my small life. I know it is only the mountain that will remain. There are moments of tragic triviality when subway doors close too quickly, and I am left outside to glare at those fortunate ones inside. I know it is only a matter of time before I haul myself onto the bus as an old woman taking Sisyphus steps, forced to accept the seat offered by a young woman, yet to ponder the notion we are all going to die. Sometimes I savor trivial moments. Emerging from the subway after a long ride, I feel like I'm coming back into my life, back into the messy play between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Let's say there is still time for you to come along with me and bring your bouquet of words before sadness plucks at my ribs as though they were a harp. Strange how music fills my mind long before actual words fit this time and this place. An innocence in lost hours of an empty afternoon. Light bends into shifting clouds, and moon, a pale haze, cowers in the sky like a suspicion. And words finally come. Hallelujah, anyway.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Sybil, you're up.
I was waiting for January. January, I was almost ready for you in heat-prickled November, watching epic sunsets, flaming orange, saffron persimmons pumped from sun, echoing silken paint-brushed watercolors in slender bamboo frames. Streetlights mellowed early dusk, purpling gardens, still lush with climbing clematis, bursts of limber roses, autumn leaves clinging gold and green. January, I needed you in December. Grass lay wheaten, gladioli flaunted for funerals, competing begonia shrouded scarlet. Are you kicking back towards October? Blackened basil, birds, butterflies, and geese migrating. Have you twisted time, prolonged the heat, made a cherry blossom tree for a wreath, for Ganymede, cupbearer for the gods? Is this envy or ennui drawing you to southern climes, where trees droop their luscious fruits, breathe scents of frankincense and myrrh, where Aquarius whispers sensuous secrets of heated days and cooling nights? January, I want you now to bring cold snow, to pause the pulse of sun.
Oh, very nice.
Could not wait.
I want to thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
I really
Thank
look
you.
forward to participating
Thank
in
you.
other of your events. And just viva poetry. Who else
Yes,
would
thank
you
you.
say?
Right on, right on.
So thank you very,
love it.
very
Thank you
much.
for
Thank you for
inviting
having
us.
us.
Pleasure.
Thank
It was
you.
our
Thank
pleasure.
you. We enjoyed it. Thanks.